a lot of my experience working in nonprofit, government-funded career centers. I have run into a lot of people that are experiencing challenges, whether that's mental health challenges, whether it's, low income housing challenges, whether it's disability. And disability, and I include mental health and mental illness and disability. And I had a little stint actually as a job developer for an organization that helped place persons with disabilities. And I had so many conversations with people where they were all for supporting, hiring people with disabilities for sure, just not in my backyard. Like I want Joe Blow down the street to do it, but here it would be too hard. Here it would be too challenging. I would be worried about these things, right? And so that sometimes, advocacy finds you. That wasn't something that since I was a child I have been outraged about, but I couldn't believe how pervasive it was, especially because like here in good old Nova Scotia, we're supposed to be nice to everybody. Like people say that all the time. Oh my God, Halifax has like the nicest people. Do we? Do we really? Right? Or is it only when it's convenient? So I am an advocate for persons with disabilities, and specifically having conversations where you disclose to an employer for the reason that, you need some sort of an accommodation. And, the law is a bit gray there. The different things that you're allowed as an employer to say, and the different things that I have a right to protect my privacy as the person that's disclosing. Like there's so much gray area there. And I've had a lot of, conversations with people that are, thinking, okay, so my work is being affected by my disability in this way, but I don't want to tell them that I have a history of trauma, and that's why I can't go to the back at 6 o'clock when daylight savings time changes and it's dark and check that the back door is locked. I don't want to have to tell that to my boss, but I don't want to have to do that, and it's part of my duties. How do I get around that? Yeah. But still, like that's a tough one, right? So I think part of it is just the advocacy part, I think, is being able to just talk out loud about some of these things and raise these points is important. And then the other thing I think is education. In the winter, I'm developing some workshops for that very thing for employers. Here's what you can ask, and here's how you should ask it to make it less terrible for the person that's disclosing to you. And disclosure, here's what you are legally required to say, but here are all of the things that you do not have to give them, right? Yeah. And here are ways to politely and respectfully say, I'm actually not going to give you that information, right? You actually don't need that information. But there's ways to set up those conversations so they're positive, so that they're bridges instead of being like battlefields,
Yeah, I think that's absolutely crucial. And it's really not taught enough to young people in particular. How do you have these kinds of difficult conversations, and how do you represent yourself well? I just think it's vital. I began working on a contract this fall with Open Door Group in British Columbia, and they are an amazing organization. They've been in business for 40 years, essentially working with people who have barriers to employment. And one of my first experiences with them was to go to an award ceremony. And the companies that were winning awards were just exactly the opposite of what you were describing. The companies that have all this anxiety around, hiring someone that has a disability and so on and so forth, or a challenge. And what these companies found, and so they all gave their speeches, and it was just a beautiful evening, but the repeated refrain from companies and businesses was that their only regret was that they hadn't started sooner, because they could not believe how incredibly productive and brilliant their team of autistic employees was, for example, or how charming and helpful and how much it had improved the profitability of the business to have had one of their employees with extreme anxiety. And she was now the trainer because they'd worked hard with her to get her through her hurdles. And she's become their best frontline person. So it was really encouraging to hear that if we can just somehow, all of us, push through some of these worries that we have about disability, which is so oftentimes exceptionality, it's just better for everybody.
Well, and I was at a conference once where someone said, instead of saying in your job ad, if you have a disability, we will accommodate you according to whatever the law is, right? We will do what the law requires of us, right? Instead, you could say, we welcome candidates with disabilities. We love that diversity that they bring to the team, right? Like we should be recruiting people with exceptionalities, right?
Yeah.
So the magic word there is hidden in one of the phrases I say about this. It's something I say a lot. It's not about what you hide. It's about what you protect. Mm-hmm. So protect is that magic word there, right? Because we often think, well, I have to tell them everything, right? And that's about social and personal branding and all of that too. Like I'm not necessarily going to put everything about my life on my Instagram. It is a curated view of my life because there are parts of my life that I don't want everyone in the world to know about. But I'm not hiding anything. I'm not being dishonest. I'm just protecting parts of my life that are private. That's okay.
Yeah, there's an amazing career counselor, John Fagan at University of Victoria, and he's described this phenomenon to me in a really powerful way. He talks to applicants that are moving from university into the workplace, and he gets them to wrap their mind around the idea of theater. So there's the front of house where, depending on who your audience is, you perform in a certain way, but you always have your back of house. And that's where you keep things behind the curtain that belong to you that depending on the audience, you bring out or you don't. So you might bring different things out when you're with your friends than you would bring out and perform when you're with your employer.
Yeah, for sure. And with different employers, you can show different facets of yourself depending on your work environment, right? So
do you find that, would you say that, and I've heard this said by sort of thought leaders in this space, but do you believe that millennials have a more theatrical sense than previous generations in terms of how they, because of social media, they're very good at constructing selves and identities depending and switching them depending on the audience and so on? Would you argue that that's kind of a gift that millennials have really had added to the spectrum of different things we do because of the technology that they were born into?
I would say it's both a gift and it's a struggle. Like I would say it's a double-edged sword. Like I agree, I do. But you also have this movement about wanting to be your authentic self. That's such a millennial thing, right? Wanting to be you, wanting to work in a place where you feel valued, recognized, where your work is meaningful, and you can walk in, and if you're having a great day, great, and if you're having a bad day, great, but you can be your authentic self, right? And so what does that mean if you have different, pictures of the people that you are? But when you think about that, I always dumb it down to, you play different roles in your life all of the time. If you have, like, I'm a sister to my brother, right? That's a different role than me being a wife to my husband. That's a different role than me being a facilitator at a workshop. I am a completely different Ali than I am when you, Jennifer, are sitting down with me for a coffee and you tell me I've had trauma in my past and now I can't go to that door. That's a completely different Ali. I'm the same person, but you're not going to get workshop Ali when you're disclosing something that, personal and that, that vulnerable to me, right? So we are many different facets. And I think the wonderful thing, and the reason why it's a gift, is that millennials have embraced the fact that we can showcase all of that to the world. And in some ways, everyone's going to have to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, instead of, well, maybe I should keep my mouth shut about advocacy and disability because I should be developing relationships with big employers in Halifax since I'm an employment coach and I also do corporate workshops about, engaging millennials and team building and stuff. And maybe I should just keep my mouth shut. Nope. This is authentically me and I'm not going to do that. And if they don't like that, there's lots of other people that are willing to work with me. You know what I mean? And that right there should be, that's like a millennial manifesto, right? It's going to be me.
Well, I think that that's going to, personally, I think that that is going to be a healthy change in the workplace. I mean, the idea that millennials have inclusivity as part of their the new traits or the part of the defining features of their generation is really exciting, and it means that the workplace has the potential to become a place where you can include negative opinions, you can include diversity, you can include authenticity that's maybe distinctly different from who you are. And all of that seems to be on the table now for, hey, what's going to be more dynamic? What's going to be more profitable? What's going to be more productive or entrepreneurial or adapt to technology, into this new workplace? I mean, inclusivity has got to be one of the key words too.
Yeah. And I think, we can get to one of my other magic words, which is, before, and a lot of my clients come in and they're really stuck and they're stuck in this black and white either or state where it's like, I have to be a professional, so I can't be myself, or I have to be a grown up, so I can't do anything fun anymore. And I have to make money, so I can't be happy at work. Right. Like, I have to pay off my student loan, so I have to take a job I despise. It's one or the other. It's either or. It's black or white. One of my magic words, my magic phrases is both and. Right? There is so much gray area in the world. And walking through your life just with black and white either or, no, you got to look around for other choices. Right? And that might seem like a privileged thing to say. I'm trying to check my privilege lately. And it might seem like a privileged thing to say, but I have had this very conversation with someone in my old career center that was a single mom on social assistance that had 3 kids and had not graduated from high school, that was being told by social assistants that she had to come here and talk to me at the center in order to keep her benefits. And they wanted her to work with me and find a job. If she found a job, she would have had to send 2 of her children to daycare because they were still in school. There's no way that she's going to be able to get a job and pay for childcare with no high school education in the area that she lived. Like, that was not going to happen. So what they were telling her to do was this: she had to show up, but she was in a box that they put her in. And so being able to say, okay, what can we do that's outside of this really black and white box that they've put you in that will show them that you're working towards it, right? How do we work with this, right? Like, it's all well and good for me to say, I love and I hate follow your bliss, find your bliss and the money will follow. Really? No, I think it's much more strategic than that. But if you go all in with, I'm going to be happy and I don't care about money, or I'm going to make money and I don't care about being happy, that's an either or, and it's bad news. You have to find balance.
Yeah, I think the balance is, it's absolutely key. It's another millennial concept too, of the way in which they try to balance life and work. And so I'm curious, with this mom with social assistance, what was the solution? What path did she take? How did you help her work through something so just incredibly challenging?
Yeah, well, part of it was that we made the case to her social assistance worker that she needed to get her GED at least before she would be eligible for most of the positions that she could do. And then on top of that, she started doing some work that was like an internship. So it wasn't paid like minimum wage. Like, I think it was a little less, which sucked, but at least it was something, where she was able to get some work experience. And because she was doing both at the same time, it worked out really well. Because what they had said is, I mean, go do some work experience. And she's like, I can do all the work experience in the world without my GD. No one's going to touch me right now, right? No one that isn't a fast food